Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Arpel Steinbach, and I am thrilled to announce my new podcast on the Hopecast Network, Locks of Laughs, where I will be chatting with comedians, restaurateurs, and everyone in the entertainment industry about comedy, pop culture, and of course, a little bit of food. You can follow Locks of Laughs on Instagram at Locks of Laughs Podcast, and Locks of Laughs will be available on Spotify, iTunes, anywhere you listen to podcasts. So like, follow, subscribe, and I cannot wait to nosh with you. Hey everybody, this is Ashley Arpel Steinbach, host of Locks of Laughs, work advice for me, and of course, movie torture, aka I am the queen of the Hopecast Network, or if you ask me, the queen bee. I hope you're all enjoying the amazing shows we have here on the Hopecast Network, and if you are, please don't forget to like and subscribe everywhere that you listen to or watch our podcasts.
This is the Hopecast Network. Stories and shows you actually want to listen to.
MTD on I Trained Voorhees. The untold story of the horror icons and the man behind the masks, plus why fat comedians rule. Published by the Hopecast Network. Chapter 10. The Dark Side. Learning from Horror. The unexpected wisdom of horror. When you think of horror films, what often comes to mind? Blood, guts, and the ever-looming threat of a guy in a mask wielding a weapon, right? But let me tell you, my dear readers, beneath all that gore and suspense lies a world of unexpected wisdom that could put self-help books to shame. Forget the life coach. All you need is a copy of the Slasher Guide to Living Your Best Life. Who knew that being chased by a psychotic killer could lead to a profound life lessons? I remember when I first decided to train Jason Voorhees. You'd think that working with someone who chases campers and wields a machete would be all about dodging death and perfecting my don't trip while running technique. But nope. Training Jason taught me that the importance of tenacity and dedication. You see, that man, or should I say, that legendary figure, never quits. He has one goal: to terrorize anyone foolish enough to camp near Crystal Lake. If only we could harness the level of commitment into our day-to-day lives. You know how they say, if at first you don't succeed, try again? Well, for Jason, it's, if at first you don't succeed, try again, until someone screams like a banshee. This mindset is contagious. You might wonder what it's like to train someone so dedicated to their craft. Let me tell you. Jason approaches every rehearsal like it's the grand finale of some twisted Broadway show. Each swing of the machete is more emotional than last, and the grunts he delivers while hurling himself at imaginary campers. Pure art. It's a miracle he doesn't have an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in the slasher role. As his trainer, I feel like I'm not just preparing him for the career in horror, I'm helping to hone a masterclass of determination. Now let's transition to Michael Myers, whom I've had the pleasure of training as well. Training Mike was like attempting to get a massive boulder to leap through hoops. Nearly impossible, but equally humorous. You think he's impervious to pain and reasoning, but this guy, in his own chilly way, teaches us about understanding our fears. He has perfected that creepy, slow-motion walk that says, I have all the time in the world, and you, my friend, are not going to enjoy your evening. This perfectly illustrates a key life lesson. Sometimes, you just need to take a slow stroll through whatever is terrifying you. Whether it's a job interview or confronting your neighbors about their lawn gnome obsession, channel your inner Michael, keep your head high, and embrace the journey. And let's not forget about the creativity embedded within horror films. Take a moment to marvel at the elaborate traps and ingenious ways these villains devise and ensnare their prey. Each time I would conduct training sessions, I'd find myself laughing over how much theoretical ingenuity one can conjure under the stress of being chased. The mind is a marvelous entity. While crafting elaborate scenarios for these characters to shine, I realized the importance of putting a little creativity into everything, including my half loaf bread invention. If a fat guy from New Jersey can dream up an ingenious way for single people to have their carbs without committing to a whole loaf, then anyone can solve life's puzzles with a sprinkle of creativity and hilarity. More importantly, horror films remind us that life has a strange sense of humor. While we chase our dreams and try to avoid the chainsaw wielding manic at our heels, there will be twists and turns that might leave us falling flat on our faces. In these moments, it's essential to learn to laugh at ourselves. After all, if you can't laugh in the face of impending doom, when can you? Just look at those poor souls on screen who make ridiculous decisions. Watching them gives me hope, realizing if they can trip over a twig while running to flee from death and still get up, then I can certainly bounce back from a bad day. So, as I reflect on all my years training horror icons, I can't help but chuckle at the unexpected wisdom that emerges. Whether it's the resilience of Jason, the patient walking of Michael, or the sheer absurdity of it all, there's a lesson lurking behind every mask. And sometimes, in the chaos of chainsaws and masked men, we find not just horror, but a peculiar kind of clarity in the absurdity of life. And that, my friends, is a lesson worth sharing, probably accompanied by some popcorn and a side of laughter. Not just about the kill, finding meaning. When the average person watches a horror movie, their primary focus is often on the thrill of the chase, the tension building before the inevitable jump scare, and of course, the carnage. But for a guy like me, trained in the art of crafting legends and honing killers, I find myself digging deeper, looking for meaning in the mayhem that most people tend to overlook. To be blunt, there's a lot more to horror in just unholy amounts of blood and a bunch of teenagers making poorly timed decisions. In fact, horror movies embody some of the most profound philosophical debates ever. If only more people watched them with a snack and a notepad. Take, for instance, the character of Jason Voorhees. At first glance, he might just seem like a hulking mass of muscle and a hockey mask with a love for carnage. Sure, he takes his defense of Crystal Lake a bit too seriously, but strip away the mask, figuratively, of course. Do you think I'd ever get that close? And what do you find? A story of isolation, rejection, and humanity. Much like that one cousin who shows up uninvited to family functions and leaves everyone dodging awkward small talk. You know who you are. Jason represents the hurt that comes from being neglected. His vengeance is simply a twisted byproduct of pain that was inflicted upon him. And believe me, revenge is quite a terrible motivator when it comes to self-improvement. Much like when you eat the last donut and realize the good decisions are hard to come by. Then there's Michael Myers, the embodiment of pure evil in a jumpsuit that's just one size too big. People tend to see him as a heartless monster, and who could blame them? After all, he's been known to raid houses with an enthusiasm rivaling that of my son when he spots a candy jar. But if you think about it, Michael's life story is way deeper. He represents the struggle of responsibility. You know, like when Aunt Linda invites you to her cat themed birthday party for the 12th time, and you're trying to figure out how to bail without hurting her feelings. While we might see him as a lunatic, his actions force us to confront our own humanity. What drives us to do the things we do? Is it fear? Anger? A deep seated desire to express our inner artist? Spoiler alert, it's usually nothing as cool as the latter. Horror films have an uncanny knack for prodding us to explore our emotions: fear, love, rage, and yes, even forgiveness. The tragic beauty of horror is that it often focuses the character to grapple with good and evil. Pour a little salt on the wound. Stephen King once said, "Monsters are real and ghosts are real too. They live inside us and sometimes they win." Now come on. Who doesn't want that tattooed on their wall next to a motivational poster of a cat hanging from a tree branch? It's groundbreaking material. It implies that our monsters can destroy us or, if we choose wisely, ultimately lead us to an inner peace that would rival any beach vacation. Moreover, horror films become a microcosm of society itself, revealing hidden fears, perspective, and taboos. Ever notice how an obnoxiously loud group of friends at the lake always meant a bad end before the opening credit roll? Those filmmakers are the touch with the very code of humanity, reminding us that we must all navigate our complicated social relationships carefully. Because if you're out there belting out 80s hits while splashing around at midnight, the only thing you're likely to drown is in your own poor decisions making skills. In the grand, twisted scheme of things, horror film teach us about vulnerability and the inevitability of mortality. It's a grotesque ballet, and we're all unwitting participants, dancing between life and death while making choices that may come back to haunt us. Whether it leads us to a cathartic experience or leaves us with questions we may never solve, there's meaning to be found. So the next time you find yourself munching on popcorn while watching the ultimate showdown between good and evil, just remember, it's not always about the kill. It's about what lurks behind the mask, the complexities of human emotions, and the altogether absurd nature of life itself. Horror is undeniably a reflection of how we confront our fears, learn from our mistakes, and ultimately find meaning in the chaos. Even if we're just a little too curious about what's hiding in the shadows. Life lessons from training legends. You know, when I signed up to train some of the most legendary horror icons, I didn't think I'd be getting a crash course in life itself. After all, what's life about? Eggs or pancakes? The thrill of danger or the sweet, sweet embrace of a cost-effective loaf of bread? I digress. Through the years of working with killers who would make any psychiatrist raise an eyebrow, I managed to extract some profound life lessons. Trust me, it's more than just dodging a machete or perfecting the art of creeping around backyards. Let's start with Jason Voorhees, a man who could teach a seminar on persistence. I once watched him trip over a rock during a warm up, and the panic on my face could have fueled a horror flick of its own. But like a true professional, Jason just got up, brushed himself off, and continued on his merry way of non lethal destruction. What does this teach us? Resilience, my friends. Life may throw you curveballs, but in mid-term exams or confronting your cousin Bob about using your Netflix account without asking, but never forget to get back on your feet. If Jason can keep lurching forward after an epic faceplant, surely you can muster the courage to tackle mundane life challenges. Then there's Michael Myers. With this impenetrable gaze and penchant for silent treatment, let me tell you, you begin to understand the value of focus when training him. One time, I attempted to distract him with a quirky dance routine reminiscent of a TikTok challenge, and he just stood there. He's got a one-track mind, folks, and it's not about trending dances. He's laser focused on reaching his goals. Cabin or skull, it doesn't matter. What life lessons can we glean from this? Prioritization is key. Whether you're trying to cut carbs or avoid getting sucked into the last reality show, because no, you don't need to see another season of Dancing with the confusingly uncoordinated. Keep your priorities straight. Michael couldn't have taken a detour toward my desperate attempts at humor. But no, he's committed to his mission. Let's be real, though. If you are someone with a butcher's knife in the vicinity, it's perhaps wise to focus on getting the heck out of there. Now, many people might label these horror icons as just monsters, but in all honesty, they exemplify teamwork, albeit a twisted interpretation. I remember working with a few other casually psychopaths characters while preparing Jason and Michael for a promotional event. You'd be surprised how well they collaborated. Sure, it was terrifying to see an unholy alliance forming right before my eyes. Wouldn't want to end up as the lunch special. But I realized that even in the most rapt scenarios, teamwork makes the dream work. Just look at how successful those predictable groups of teenagers in horror movies are at getting picked off. If only they learn to communicate. The lesson here is simple. Cultivate relationships because we're better together. Whether you're building a friendship or spearheading a project at work, don't operate like a lone wolf. Unless, of course, you're from a horror flick where that needs tends to result in a rather unfortunate fate. While I trained these legendary figures, I also took note of humor woven into the fabric of chaos. I once staged a little mock horror scene, and let me tell you, laughter echoed through the rehearsal room as Jason got confused by a prop. Not every workshop needs to feel like a scene out of a thriller. The moral? Don't take life too seriously. Sometimes you just need to wear the goofy mask or swing around a fake machete to melt the tension away. Remember, even the most fearsome of villains can burst out a chuckle when you least expect it. Go and unleash the inner clown. You might just discover you're doing your best work when you're having fun. And let's not forget fear, the ultimate teacher. Spending time with killers had me evaluating my own fears and insecurities. Through late night training sessions where shadows danced like a little too closely and the echoes of my sanity whispered ominously, I learned that confronting fear is essential. Just imagine being chased down by a legend. It forces you to either dive into the depths of fertilized horror or sprint toward your ambitions with all your might. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by fear, be it a deadline or a relationship, think of the horror icons. Embrace the frights and charge forward. In summation, training these icon legends is not just a thrilling rail. It's a treasure trove of life lessons wrapped in blood-soaked bandages. Resilience from Jason, laser-focused prioritization from Michael, the power of teamwork, humor in chaos, and confronting fear would all serve anyone far better than any self-help book could. So the next time things feel daunting, just remember, arm yourself with creativity, a dash of laughter, and let horror be your orthodox mentor. The lessons learned can certainly cut deeper than a machete and maybe even more fulfilling than a half loaf of bread. Confronting fear, what it teaches us. Fear is a funny thing, isn't it? I mean, no one really wants to feel it. But what if I told you that confronting fear head on could lead to more than just sweaty palms and wide eye horror? In my wild years of training the finest slasher icons, I came to realize that fear is essentially a nutty teacher wearing a hockey mask. The kind that looks terrifying yet ironically offers life lessons that are worth their weight in, well, body parts. Whether it's a chainsaw wielding manic or the horror of having to confront your in laws about the awkward nacho cheese incident, facing the things that scare us open our eyes to the world in a way nothing else can. Take Jason Voorhees, for example. The dude's got issues, sure, but his message is clear. Fear can fuel progress. Every morning of our training sessions, he'd show up to practice, machete in hand, ready to face whatever dared to step onto Crystal Lake territory. What struck me the most was how every failed attempt to chase down an imaginary camper only made him more determined. After tripping over his own feet more times than I care to admit, I thought, man, this guy should receive an award for tenacity. Here's the kicker. Every time he faced failure, because let's be honest, if you're being chased by a man with a machete, odds aren't in your favor, he grew stronger and more focused on his objectives. So next time you're faced with a challenge, remember it's okay to trip over your own fears. Just lace up those sneakers and get back to running. Now let's pivot to Michael Myers, the master of stealth and the uncanny ability to tune into people's most profound fears. Picture this. Every time he wears the signature expressionless mask, it's a pretty striking metaphor for confronting the deepest corners of one's psyche. He isn't just a spooky figure lurking in the shadows. He embodies the nagging thoughts that make us avoid life's challenges. Think about it. When faced with a daunting task, we're talking about someone on a date or delivering a speech at a family reunion, what do we tend to do? We become Michael Myers, donning the metaphorical mask of avoidance, creeping away from our worries until the perfect moment comes, which, spoiler alert, never really arrives. The lesson here: embrace your inner Michael, remove the mask, expose the vulnerability, and charge headlong into the challenge. It's liberating, I promise. As I trained these legendary figures, I couldn't help but notice that facing fear, it's like preparing for a roller coaster. You know the feeling of dread in the pit of your stomach as you buckle into your seat and take the ascent to the first drop. That's fear throwing a tantrum. The anticipation is nerve-wracking, but once you commit and zip down that first drop, adrenaline soars, and suddenly the world seems more vibrant. Facing fear instigates that same rush. Sure, the idea of confronting your boss about a raise is akin to facing a devilish roller coaster, but trust me, the heart pounding ends with exhilaration once you face the music. Furthermore, confronting fear often leads to acceptance. Take it from me. When I met my ex-wife's poodle, an absolute beast dressed in a fur coat, I thought I was encountering the boogeyman. However, by attempting to befriend it, I learned more about myself in those precious seconds than I have ever did reading my self-help books. I swear my therapist is still upset I chose therapy over poodle training. Much like poodles, fears are often less monstrous than they seem. Exposing ourselves to what scares us can qualify as exposure therapy without needing an extensive degree, or having to listen to a therapist play ride to die bingo with our neurosis. As counterintuitive as it sounds, fear can actually be useful in motivating us to grow and evolve. Remember, it's the deviant side of fear that pushes us to be better versions of ourselves. When Michael Myers kept showing that he's decidedly not a morning person, it made me learn to craft compelling conversations to encourage him to soften. I became a coach of confidence because empathetic to each challenge while honing the skills of motivating the daylights out of me. Taking that feeling of fear and transforming it into energy for action is something we can take from the horror genre to our daily lives. Whenever you feel overwhelmed with fear, don't let it paralyze you. Use it as motivation. In conclusion, confronting fear yields invaluable teachings that make us more resilient human beings, capable of achieving great things. Unless you're training for something particularly wild like trying to outrun a well-placed trap in the woods. Remember, fear is inevitable. It's a wild, torn, albeit slightly budgeted, monster with a penchant for subdued chaos. Embrace it, laugh at it, and use it to catalyze growth. After all, life's adventure is all about charging towards the shadows and realizing that the scariest part might just be a leap of faith you take. And that, my friends, is how you tame our inner horror icons like true champions. Fate and choices, the intersection of horror and life. Fate and choices, two little concepts that haunt our existence, like a mysterious fog rolling after midnight campfire ghost story. If you ever settled into your favorite horror flick, quaking in your boots at the character's unknowingly edge toward disaster, you begin to grasp the intertwining paths of destiny and decision we all navigate. You see, horror doesn't just serve up blood and jump scares. It's mirror reflecting the classic struggle of life itself, where fate pretends to call the shots while our choices dictate the real storyline. Let's take Jason Voorhees, for example. This guy is the epitome of someone having a one-sided conversation with fate. Eternal victim turned relentless pursuer, he operates under a law of unyielding paths, where death is not the end but merely a chance to reset like an old video game. I mean, the poor fella simply wants to protect Crystal Lake. But alas, fate had a warped sense of humor when it decided to turn him into a legendary slasher. I often found myself theorizing what might have happened if Jason had just chosen a different route. Perhaps he could have opened a lumberjack school instead of sharpening his machete. Honestly, maybe his life would have been all about timber instead of timbering. This brings us to chaos choices. Every misstep broadened the blood-soaked trail behind Jason. Imagine the decisions leading up to his Otis of chaos. The kids at the camp could have chosen to build bridges with him rather than sharp trees. They couldn't organize a summer camp for nurturing relationships, no dash of murderous malevolence involved. Choices hold power. After all, it's as if we're all programmers in an intricate game code, except tragically, we ought to forget to save our progress, leading to several do-overs in the form of murderous horror. Conversely, we cannot dismiss Michael Myers and his unwavering march of doom. The dude is relentless. With each step toward his target, he exemplifies the fateful habit of pushing through life's obstacles with murderous grace. But think about it. What if he had chosen a different vocation? Makeup artist, dancer, such choices might have led to a more harmonious existence. Instead of a murderous career that screams midlife crisis, yet here he is, symbolizing how choices carry a weight that can alter destinies in both delightful and horrific ways. I can almost picture him trying out for a local dance troupe only to be escorted out for, well, trying to stab people in between rehearsals. In horror films, characters often sprint from terror, deciding whether to flee or fight. Guess what? Life is pretty similar in that regard. Each day we face decisions that can either conjure our worst nightmares or serve to create magical moments. Take that time you could have chosen to attend your cousin Dave's wedding instead of avoiding family altogether, only to find Dave's new bride reading excerpts from the Zumba in Verse cookbook. Fate beckoned you toward unadulterated joy, and you chose to step away. Sit with that choice. Are you fulfilling your blindfolded version of horror, or, experiencing life instead? Moreover, let's be real. Horror consistently schools us on the sheer unpredictability of choices and consequences. It's about taking leaps and just hoping there isn't a trap waiting around the corner. Akin to my last birthday party where I attempted to surprise everyone with an elaborate piñata filled with jello that turned out all too sticky. My choice led to unexpected chaos, teaching me not just about fun, but also about hygiene. Something I'm still trying to recover from. So where does this intersect with life? Well, life throws us curveballs, similar to sudden plot twists in horror films. Just when you think you figured it all out, bam! A pizza delivery guy knocks on your door with your favorite deep dish, creating a conflict between dietary restriction and heavenly carbs. Fate and choices intermingle in such a way that could inspire the next big horror flick. Trapped in the abyss of the pizza box. It's not a bad plot twist if you lean into it. In conclusion, the intersection of fate and choices, especially within the horror genre, expose our common struggle. Just as every character wrestles with the heavy weight of their decisions while facing their fate, we too must navigate the unpredictable paths of our lives, haunted by choices made and mistakes pondered. Whether we fashion ourselves into vengeful spirits, chaotic entertainers, or just ordinary folks waiting for life's next act, the reality is that we oftentimes choose our own paths. And whether we are led to Crystal Lake or just the nearest coffee shop is entirely up to us. Embrace it, laugh at it, and remember, it's all part of the thrilling horror show we call life. The Hopecast Network has reached out to MTD for further questioning on the things written about him. His whereabouts are unknown at this time.